Why, Uce? Tell me why the sky's blue. Tell me why this money is green. Now, Lord, please, tell me why I do these things to make tea. Now, yeah, let me. They kick me out of church, cause I just don't listen. Always fall asleep when the preacher is preaching.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode, your number one podcast that helps you pass time. And how does Puni Moa do that? I do that by simply inviting entrepreneurs, small business owners, content creators, careers, regular Joes, blue collars, and also my man, the difference, bio male. What does bio stand for? It's like bio what?
Biological. Male. Those are my pronouns.
There's the pronouns because we got to be sensitive and make sure that we clarify. So, in other words, Puni Moa will be Puni Moa, biological male, right?
It's your choice.
No, it's out. It's my choice.
He, him, or he, she.
Okay.
Or zizzer.
Yes, sir. Okay, and I'm Puni Moa. Yes, sir. So, what's up, Boost? Oh, before we get started, man, I want to go ahead. Well, we're going to go ahead and do a shout out to Queen. Happy birthday, Queen. Queen's birthday.
Happy birthday, Queenie.
Yes. Queen is officially 21 years old now. Congratulations, Queen.
Legal.
For real, man. What you been up to, bro?
I just got off work. Got straight here. Was in that rut. Today's my Friday.
Happy Friday to everybody, because this episode will probably be posted in the next 2 days, maybe on Monday, maybe on the weekends, depending how I get to it, man. But yeah, man, ladies and gentlemen, as before we dive into stuff, as you can see, the hat that I'm rocking, we have merchandise that we sell at our website, only on our website at www.yuce.com. Post everything on the link, below the link.
Just get the merch.
Yeah, just get the merch, man. And why? Why do we do that? Because this episode is sponsored by nobody but the Uce. So in order for Uce to continue to deliver you a podcast, just to update everybody, me and the difference, we recorded last week, and I don't know what happened to it, man. That's where the age kicks in, and your boy was trying to edit and transfer that over to a file, and then next thing you know, not reading. That's why it's important to read what the instruction before you hit yes or accept. I didn't realize it was saying accept the new file that I have, and we lost all our recording.
It was probably a good thing that it probably didn't get viewed, because we would have had a lot of pushback on what we were talking about. It could have offended somebody out there, but it will summarize what we spoke about last week, just about the electoral college and the importance of it. And on your end, you felt that you needed to get rid of the electoral college. Should be a majority votes. And I was totally against it. It was the fact that that's why founding fathers they didn't want it to be a pure democracy. Because what a majority rules means is that a one uniparty could actually run this big government for the rest of our lives, and to have the electoral college, considering each of the 50 states, they have a particular amount of electoral votes considering the population. Like California has 60 electoral votes, compared to the state of Wyoming only has probably 1 or 2. And we discussed about the elections. The importance of having an electoral college is the fact that when you're voting for a particular candidate, either on the Democrat side or the Republican side, you're not actually voting for a candidate. You're actually voting for the electoral votes, or the electoral voters from those states. And there's about 538 electoral votes within the U.S., and you need 270 to win the presidential election. So winning the 270 determines pretty much who wins, the ballot, for a presidential election. And we go on about, the college campuses that, you have students, setting up encampments, taking over, the college halls, or preventing other students who are Jewish, from attending, classes and all that, just because of the ceasefire that they're protesting for, Palestine. And I look at, yeah, you can protest about stuff like that, but on the other hand, they're also protesting the, genocide of Jews, because they said Palestinians, they're going through a genocide themselves, some form of ethnic cleansing that, you only see on one side of the news, but you don't see what's going on the other side with Israel. So I think we touched on some of the topics, well, what I brought up, but it was probably a good thing that we did it. You didn't post it, because I've come across just recently, I came across a lot of young Samoans who are pretty much pro Hamas, or they're all for the killing the Jews, which is sad, because they bought into that narrative.
Man, so the Jews, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not familiar with it. I would want to say that I am naive to the situation or the topic, but from my understanding, isn't the Jews like the Israelites, Israel, the country of
Yes.
Israel?
Mhm.
Okay. And the only reason why I'm just trying to clarify that, because of my upbringing in a Christian church, specifically in the Pentecostal. It's kind of hard to say which category does the Pentecostal fall under, because I guess the denomination of the Pentecostal, from my experience and my own opinion, it kind of falls in the category of Baptist here in the U.S.
Yes. It's
You-
it's a Pentecostal, pretty much
Yeah.
like a spin-off in a way, how you might want to say it. It's just like
hmm
the AOG is also a spin-off of the Pentecostal church.
Correct. Correct. And I
The
feel like
AOG,
that's all within the same,
yeah, yeah.
I guess,
They're from the
denomination,
family tree.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the same family tree, because when it's separated from a Catholic, 7 Day Adventist, and what else, Mormons, LDS, and stuff like that. So, anyways,
I'm gonna correct you on that about the Seventh Day
go ahead.
Adventists and the Mormons. They
hmm
didn't break off. There was only one church at that time. It was the Roman Catholic Church, and
Correct.
during Protestant came about that. When the Church of England broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, that's where they were labeled as Protestants.
Mm,
Protests.
yeah.
They protested against the Catholic Church. So anyone that breaks away from the Roman Catholic Church is considered a Protestant church.
Okay.
Because the first church, of course, was, yes, the Roman Catholic Church. First pope was, Saint Peter.
But just to get back to the point as far as the Israelites and the Palestine, right? So, from my upbringing, I've been taught that, like, because in the I guess the Christianity of my denomination, our belief is, the second coming of Jesus Christ will be when somebody tries to. One of the signs will be Israelites, the chosen land that God chose. So if that place gets attacked, that's kind of like a sign of the second coming. But anyways, we're not trying to get into religion. It's just kind of like of my, like, wow, we have actual Samoans that are for that particular country you just mentioned, that wants to go ahead and
Yeah,
attack Israel.
this younger generation, like we spoke on our, last week's podcast, the indoctrination that they've, what are they being taught in school? Well, I kind of copied it off of what I saw, where this young reporter was, on the streets, just asking people, what is Independence Day? Why do we celebrate Independence Day? And actually, 10 out of 10 of the folks that he's asked, they don't know, why they celebrate Independence Day. It's telling me that they're not being taught in school, or they're just being ignorant about the fact that Independence Day was, the celebration of Independence Day is from independence from Great Britain at the time, England. 1776 was an important date, for America. You had signing the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution that came with the first Congress. So uh, it's kind of sad that they don't know that history, but they're really good at knowing the history at a certain point in time. You probably heard of the 1619 Project that pretty much won a Nobel Peace Prize, somewhat about that America was founded on slavery on that date, 1619. So they only know about, the history of slavery from that point in time, but slavery goes far back in the 1500s, 1400s, and the 1300s. But nobody wants to talk about that. They only want to talk about slavery here in the US, which is, slavery is, it's a stain within the fabric of, the history of this country. But to this day, slavery still does exist, and, people are ignorant to the fact that, it's still happening around the world.
Speaking of slavery, man, you heard of the whole conversation that we used to be slaves to Tongans back then?
Well, that too, but it was all of Samoa. We had many islands. It was probably just Savaii or, Upolu. But
Hmm.
I believe, those in Kukuila and Manua were slaves to the Tongans. Tongans only ruled that certain, part, but it's fun how out here, and it could be hearsay in a way, but they said that Tongans, and they're, some of these folks, they're probably ignorant to the fact that, oral history could easily be changed. It could be watered down, that information. They said they ruled over Samoa for 400 years. Well, you guys ruled over Samoa for 400 years, we'd be speaking Tongan, right? I'll just leave it up. I'll just leave that up in the air. But I believe that, Tonga and Samoa, they've had better relationships, even before, after the wars. So there's really no bad blood. You know, that's my opinion, but there's still a good relationship with Tonga right now. We still have the youths, these days just fighting it out. Who's a stronger, Pacific island, within that Polynesian, triangle.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take on that, Puni Moa?
When I initially heard about it, I didn't see any documents or books about it. It was word of mouth,
Yeah.
and that's more likely of from Samoa side instead of American Samoa, because I've, as me being from Manua, especially my parents, that story has never came around to us, so it was kind of like, what? Then again, I could be ignorant to it, but it's never been taught. So
Yeah, there's also hate in on Kukuila about, when they talk about that history between Tonga and Samoa, where, the king of Manua was in league with the Tongans. So there's some sort of hatred too for Manua that, of course, Manua wasn't conquered, and that's why they said, oh, Tui Manua was, in league with, Tui Tonga, during those times. But, I said oral history does get passed down, and it does get watered down over the years, over the centuries. So, not a lot of the information that gets passed down is, accurate.
yeah, that's where that's where I stand at it, man. Because I'm like, well, for Manua, as you know, everything is there. There's nothing documented. It's just passed down from generations to generations. As they tell the story, and
Mhm.
it's our duty to to pass that on down to the next generation or the next kin. But as time has changed, I feel more like it's important to have it documented because
Mhm.
it's a lot more, just taking a good example and use something good that the white folks has came about, which is writing books and scrolls and all that stuff, and just using that tool as a good thing to for our own nation or country, whatever we're called, to document so that way
Yeah,
it's at least been written.
the ancient Egyptians were documenting things, on these, papyrus, scrolls and all that. And so, you think about Samoa was around, say, I say roughly what 3,000-4,000 years, but they weren't doing that.
Nope.
They're busy just sailing from one island to another, on their aliyahs or discovering new islands within, just navigating the South Pacific time. But at that time, they weren't writing things down. The ancient Chinese created paper. thousands of years ago. They could have picked that up, but we never know. We never know what was going through their minds at that time.
Yeah, we're definitely not expert of it, but it's just some. It's intrigue. It would have been nice to have scrolls or even books about it. You know what I mean? Because I know that
Mhm.
the actual first things that were written or authored about Samoa is from Palangi people. If you enjoy our content, we ask you to please follow us, subscribe to our channel, and spread the news to your friends and family if you find value in our content. But for the meantime, we have put together merchandise that we sell on our website at yuce.com. Anything that you purchase will help keep this running. You have a Yuce in you. Now let's get back to it. Samoans that are out here in the US, your voice does matter. It's kind of like one of the things, man. If you don't like the things that the government is giving out, well, that's you shouldn't be having anything to say about it if you're not voting, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Your people always gonna complain, and you ask them, well, did you vote for that particular individual that's allowing this, and they'll say yes. So, well, complain about it. You voted for it. You should have just like found out what his policies were. You should have attended those town hall meetings and asked him those questions. Will you do this? What's your policy about taking care of, say, homeless veterans? And every politician is pretty much a salesman. They're just going to sell you something, to gain your vote, and do a whole, switch through on you and do the opposite. And you're going to find some candidates, people representing your district that align with your values, and that's the kind of person you want to vote for. You don't want to be a rubber stamp, and that's what the majority of the people are, just a bunch of rubber stampers. If someone's name aligns with a particular letter at the end, like a R or a D, that's who they affiliate with it. Because like they say, my family's voted Democrat, or lives. So someone voted Democrat. So that's how it is. Just like the Samoan people, Lyndon B. Johnson went down to American Samoa, and did some things where, he handed out breadcrumbs, and on the heart of Samoan people, because they that milk and honey was good and they wanted more. So Lyndon B. Johnson kept on throwing more breadcrumbs. Hey, I want to make you vote Democrat. For the next 100, 200 years, and that's the mentality. That's the mindset. Of American Samoans. And people don't get mad at me. That's the way I see it. That's pretty much my opinion. That's why the majority of Samoans vote Democrat.
Yeah. It's what they grew up just like in when you were raised. Well, as you know, all Samoans were raised in the Christian home church,
Mhm.
whatever your denomination was. The fact is that as you become adult, you become your own man or woman or whatever you claim your gender is, and you have the right, to if you don't do your own reading and research, you tend to just be accustomed or naive to what you were brought up to be. That's how I feel about that.
Just do your research. Just follow what their policies, what they stand for. Why should I vote for this individual? I just Why should I vote for this governor? What can he do for the people? My district, or my island, territory. And if you find that it doesn't really align, then maybe you should check out the next candidate. There's more than one candidate that's running for a particular seat. So look at their policies, compare it, see which one that really aligns with your values, and go for it. You have every right, you have that freedom and liberty to vote for whoever you want. And your family members and friends may not agree with you. Well, and that's when you challenge them. What can this candidate provide? Oh, he's related to us. So now that's where nepotism comes into play. You know,
Mm.
and some they vote, with emotion, because that person is a relative of theirs, or their family member holds office within that administration, and they have to vote for them so they can keep their relative, or their parent within that office. So that's it. People like that, they just vote with emotions. I don't
What
know.
got you? What got you all into this? Because for obviously we grew up different kind of upbringing. Like, what got you involved and what made you? Because I mean, I could be wrong, but from my circle and just depending on the people that I hung around with or came to meet, a lot of the people that I came across, and I'm just speaking specifically for Samoans, none of them was involved in politics. Just recently, but as growing up, man, it's just what got you in? Because it seems like you got involved. You
It was
became
it
aware
was in
of
the
it.
early '80s. It was in the early '80s, and I remember when Reagan won the ballot, and I was just kind of intrigued. We're just watching it, and I said, I like this guy. But the thing is, I didn't know anything about his policies, but I liked him. I liked the way he spoke. I was kind of like zoned in on him. Then I remember the '84 presidential election. You know, I remember going to school and telling people that Ronald Reagan's going to beat Walter Mondale, and I had people laughing because this was in California, and plus you have to remember Reagan was the governor of California at the time, so that's why I kind of supported Reagan because and Reagan won by a landslide. He lost, I think he lost one state out of 50 states. So I stuck with him. Uh, I really didn't know about parties and all that, but I remember just hearing he's a Republican. So ever since then, I just became a Republican. Then the older I got, the more I started learning more about the party, what their values were, you know, and reached that adulthood where I can easily distinguish between the values of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. So I got more in tune with politics when Clinton was in office in the '90s.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to put the puzzle together. Why, as you know, a majority of our race does
Mhm.
not really entertain politics. And I'm only thinking just for our you Americans, Samoans that are out here in the US. Why is that? And the only thing that comes to mind is because our focus, just the fact that we left the island to come here to have a better life for the sake of our family and ourselves, that was a more at priority at the time because we're trying to get used to this whole new continent. At the same time, trying to make ends meet. So it felt like for me, as politics didn't really matter in my early 20s, even even my 30s. So I was trying to find myself, with my wife and kids, and just focus on that part until that became a thing where we were able to succeed, and still work in progress. Then I started paying attention to the politics side because of the fact that where I'm at in life, when it comes to doing business and the importance of why I want to vote for a certain person, especially as a senator in the state that I'm in, and then eventually up there to the president when it comes to taxes and stuff like that. I think I'm just my own opinion of why probably Samoans are not into politics at the moment. I think it depends on where you're at in life, financially or maybe
Mhm.
just in as a whole, if that makes any sense.
Those are you're in Kentucky, huh?
Because I'm in Kentucky, correct?
Okay, yeah. I supported Ron Paul when he had a bid in for it, the presidential election and all that, and he didn't make the cut. But I do like his son, who's a senator out of there, Rand Paul,
Hmm.
who was also a medical doctor, out of Kentucky. So, uh, yeah, as I got older, like I said, I was able to distinguish, certain values and all that. I
Yes, the
kind of think
values.
about, years back, I think about the hypocrisy. I shouldn't say that about our people, but they're God people, and they will vote for one party, but they don't like, a certain thing. Abortion's a big issue. Abortion's always been, it's a talk that comes when the election comes around, abortion and all that. And we don't like abortion because we're God-fearing people. We won't allow it. And I say, well, if you don't like abortion, why do you guys vote for the people that are for abortion? Like right now, some states that allow abortion, you know, uh, they allow abortion up to the time of conception, which I find that very sickening. A woman will give birth at conception and decide, well, I don't want the baby now. So they're allowed to, you know, unalive it.
Are you like referring to like the Trump party and Biden party when it comes to that?
No, 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 no. I'm coming out with both parties,
Okay.
Republican or Democrat. We had a huge Senate election 2 years ago where I spoke to my friends and I said that hey, don't forget to vote. Either vote for this candidate who's a incumbent Democrat who's been there for I'd say a little over 20 years. In the Senate, you have this one person that's coming up, and the issue that they had with this newbie that was coming on board that was challenging that seat, they said, well, she's against abortion. I said, well, did you read up on her policies or did you listen to anything that she says? And he said, no. I said, well, she's against abortion when in the third trimester or at conception, meaning that the baby could be fully formed in the womb, say in 8 months,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have an abortion, or you can have an abortion when you give birth to the child and you can unalive it. Would you call that murder? When the baby's out of the womb and she doesn't
Well,
want the baby, she can have it aborted.
wow.
That's what the Democrats push. That's what Planned Parenthood pushes to have abortion at conception.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that deep.
Well, yeah, which I'm very. That's what the Democrats don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about that part.
So
But
they're
they
just
always
like,
talk about
yeah,
my body, my choice. But they
yeah,
won't
that's
tell you. They won't tell you. They won't tell you the sausage making. In the back about what they're really for.
they're just using the
Me
how you said
too. My
the
body,
Me
my
Too.
choice. But this candidate I was running says that if the mother's life is in danger, yeah, we can abort it. But she is against abortion at the third trimester or at conception. That's all. And that's what a lot of my friends are saying. Oh, she's against abortion. But no, she's against abortion at certain points where this and that and this other thing. That candidate, the incumbent candidate who's a senator, Democrat senator, did she tell you what she's for? She gets huge donations from Planned Parenthood, and she's really pushing to have abortion at conception. So it's just a smokescreen. They don't want to tell you, yeah, hey, my body, my choice, but hey, yeah, we're really going to kill the baby when you give birth if you don't want it. I don't think the mother has that right, because that's when she says my body, my choice, the moment you give birth. Well, that child that you brought into this world, it's actually their body, their choice. You don't have the right to abort your own child after you bring it into this world.
Yeah, that's way above my
That's what they don't tell you. They
I
don't tell
don't
you that.
know. Yeah, because my whole point of voting, like I told you before, from our episode that we lost was it all goes towards whatever's helping my job, the career that I'm
Hmm.
in.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to vote for. Either everything else, even it can be the worst thing. Let's just say Joe Biden as an example. As long as Joe Biden is going to provide for the company and the corporation that I'm working for, well, guess what? That feeds my household, and I'm going to vote for that because it's going to help me and my family. But the downfall of it, I am aware that, I don't believe in any of the practice that they're also giving. But as long as something that works in my favor, And that's just how I vote. Unfortunately, it's sad, but it's one of them things for me. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's your freedom and your liberty to vote for who you want to vote for. If it's there to help feed your family, put a roof over your head, go for it. But
Yeah.
you want to compare that? Try to
Mhm.
compare what you had 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, compare what's going on like right now than what I had 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
As
You know
far
what? You didn't have this podcast, so we we can't make
correct.
that comparison.
Get
Yeah.
get to me after. We'll talk about this 4 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
4 years down the road.
4 years down the road, right? Yeah, because they know that. That's interesting. Because I remember speaking of like the whole thing of how we grew up and who it's either the reason the person that we will vote for a certain individual is either the common thing. It's either we're related to that person or that's somebody like you yourself, when it came to Ronald Reagan, it's just his charisma. You know what I'm saying? Like it just be something like that is why people vote. But I don't know, man. I kind of feel the same way when it comes to ministry. And the only reason why I'm saying that because I know that my family, my own family, are all Trump supporters. And my father's
Well,
a,
they
a
have the freedom to
pastor.
vote for whoever they want to vote.
my father's a pastor, and my siblings they're all Donald Trump voters. Enjoying the content? If you like it, man, please spread the news. You want that positive vibe? Leave a comment. Let us know how you feel about the topics. Share your story. Let's make the world better. Join Uce, and together, let's push this positive vibe. I was going to vote for was Vivek Ramaswamy, and the only reason
Oh
why
yeah.
I knew about him, the only reason why I knew about him was through my own brother, Sole Uce.
Yeah.
He's like, check him
I
out.
I follow that guy. I was following Vivek
Yeah,
back
Vivek.
2022, and when he announced his presidency, I jumped on board because I like the guy. You know,
So when I got to understand him, like of course it was through my brother who did he got my attention. But what I like about him because I've always had this thing about like what do you call that? Just like I felt like that pharmaceuticals, all these big pharma companies that gives us all these you notice when you go visit your doctor instead of like doing all these they're always writing you a prescription to go pick up a
hmm
medicine that you hear that whole stigma of like the doctors are getting paid because those are really
yeah.
the big drug lords, right? Is the ones that owns all these big old medicines and stuff like that. And
Oh,
that's what really caught my
when
attention.
every time they write a prescription, they get a bonus.
Yeah.
They get a particular bonus for it. I had a relative, a cousin of mine, who worked in the I said big pharma industry, and he traveled a lot. He was based out of San Francisco, and he traveled to like all these hospitals, not just across the state, but across the country. And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Trying to sell this one particular drug."
Yeah.
So, oh wow, tired from it. He made. He earned a lot of good money doing it.
Oos was on the Behind the Lava Lava podcast. Shout out to Behind the Lava Lava too. They just had him on there, and there was a Oos that I believe his last name's Fanene, and he just finished and won a lawsuit on him because of I could be wrong, but I believe because he has a documentary, and I believe he was doing the same thing, like selling a medicine, So
Mhm,
they were almost trying to lock him up, but he was able to overcome that by the connection he has through networking and
mhm.
stuff like that. But yeah, man, that's why I wanted to go. I was really rooting for Vivek because the fact that one, he made his own medicine, and two, he's kind of like us. How I said on a what was it? The
He's an
episode
entrepreneur, man. He's a
entrepreneur.
multi-billionaire. Yeah, he's
Yep,
a multi-billionaire and got a smooth talker. And
very smooth, man.
he's when it comes to debates, oh man,
Oh,
it's election year, so the gloves are off and they're throwing everything at you. The kitchen
mhm.
sink, the rock, la papa, and just to get your vote. And
You think that's what it is?
yeah, and from now to election day, it's all about a smear campaign right now. Finding ways to smear. one candidate against another. Right now, it's a three-way race because you have RFK in there.
You know, as we do NFT and investments and stuff like that, and RFK is the one that supports that kind of stuff when it comes to Bitcoins and all that stuff where we don't have to get taxed and whatever you call that kind of stuff. So, you know, as far as Puni Moa, that's where I'm leaning towards, you know.
Of course, RFK doesn't do that because the Democrats they don't like Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going for those that will benefit the Uce podcast, and RFK is swinging that way. What is your take on
RFK,
RFK?
RFK has to me he's still a Democrat. I call him a classical Democrat. You know, he still has some of the values of you know, that line with you know, the Republican Party. He's strong on 2A, and he's all for, you know, your freedom and liberties and all that. The thing is, I disagree with him is that he's actually for abortion. You know, he's big on that my body, my choice. But he's also for the fact that, you know, abortion at conception. I totally disagree. That's why I will not. He will not get my vote. And the next candidate, well, been a pathological liar since the late 70s. He's a racist. He's even it's all the information's out. He did a eulogy for a former, you know, Grand Dragon KKK member who was also a senator. That was his mentor when he was in the Senate. Everything that comes out of his mouth is, you know, total lie. The guy wears an adult diaper all the time. You know, I know this because the way he runs, it's funny. Like he needs to run to the bathroom real quick. And I have the other third candidate. You know, he's very brazen. You know, there's some things I don't like that he says. The things that he says, you know, he does. You know, tends to get the job done. You know, it's I find that what they're doing to him right now, it's highly politicized. They weaponize the DOJ. The moment that he announced that he's running for re-election, all these indictments started being thrown at him. You know, you had Georgia, New York, and in Florida. So it tells me right there that the Biden DOJ is actually been politicized to take this person down because as far as polling goes, I don't like polling or the polls, but you know, he does have a commanding lead to be the 47th president of the United States.
And for those that are listening to the episode, man, drop a comment below. Let us know what you guys think. You know what I'm saying? What we're talking about. Yeah, just going back to I was just thinking about like what we were talking about earlier with like RFK and all of them. Like Vivek and RFK is the ones that I noticed that are visiting podcasts because I've seen a few of them on like some of the podcasts that I listen to. They were
Mhm.
able to figure that part out because like you were bringing up the phone and they're reaching out to all of us that actually enjoys podcasts, especially, you know, the Joe Rogans and
Yeah.
people like
Well,
that.
Vivek and RFK, they have to do that to get their
Mhm,
voice, you know, and their face out there. You know, starting 2022, Vivek when he announced his presidency, he did it on Twitter. Then later on, he started his own little grassroots movement where he started going through all these swing states, traveling around the country. You know, having these
mhm.
town halls. You know, people started to get to know him, and it just started, you know, catching traction. Where he ended up being on podcasts, and he was on, you know, mainstream media, being
Yep.
interviewed and all that, and you know, and RFK was doing the same thing. You know, and that's the only way you need to do. You know, if you're gonna start campaigning, you better start campaigning right now, even though the election's 2 years away, and they started doing it. Well, RFK came out last year, but Vivek was
Yes.
doing it since you know, in the fall of 2022.
Which is why the whole thing for me is like, man, is that story about like, is it really true that he got threatened to where he was pretty much the reason why he did step down? Because I mean, you heard about that story where he was like, he was actually getting threatened, where reality finally hit him. Because out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he just decided to withdraw, and he was on the hot streak, you know.
Yeah. Well, he when they're going through the primaries, I forget what state it was, but the moment that he stepped down, the next day he was in, I believe, I don't think South Carolina or New Hampshire.
One of
Next
those
day
states.
he showed up at, stand next to Trump. And you see Vivek was in New York City just last week. Him and a couple of congressmen were in New York supporting Trump while he was going through his hush money trial. So you kind of wonder, so what kind of office do you think he's aiming for? You know, he's hoping he's going to get rewarded. Which that's what all candidates. That's what everyone does. They kind of go support the guy that they know is going to win the presidential election, and hopefully they get a sweet deal where they sit in his administration. And as a department head. What department do you think that they would be good at? Department of Energy?
The medicine side, the pharmaceutical and all that.
Mm.
That's what I feel like he'll be good at, because that's actually where he made his money from. You got, just like I always hear on successful entrepreneurs and business owners, it's like, you got to be an expert at whatever business you're starting. This episode is sponsored by nobody. So the only way we keep the lights running, we got merch. As you can see, the hat I got on, the t-shirts. You can find it at our website, Uce, which is WHYUCE.com, and everything's put down on the description. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. Take that how you want to take it, folks. I'm your boy Puni Moa. And the difference.
The difference.